Hi there, everybody. It's Tuesday evening, and the kindergarten just finished their fantastic celebration of learning. It was great. Um, Courtney did such a nice job, and Mikhail, they just did such a great job, and the kids were Michaela did such a great job. The kids were darling, and the parents were enthusiastic. It was short and it was absolutely perfect. And it's another great thing about Promontory. I'm making a very brief video for you this evening to invite you to Friday's in-service. I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up so that you could be thinking about some things before we begin, and also so that you have an understanding of what the day will be like. First of all, we're thinking that we'd like to start at 8:30, and you please feel free to wear comfortable clothes, bring the snacks and the water bottles and the things that you personally are going to want to have with you. And we'll look at that running about 3 hours long till about 11:30. No, is that 4 hours? No, that's 3 hours long till about 11:30. At 11:30, you'll be excused for lunch, and the time will be yours for the remainder of the day. And we'll explain to you the reason behind that just very briefly, so you can plan on an in-person meeting from 8:30 to 11:30. Come comfortable and be ready to contribute and be part of what's going on. As you know, our school was awarded a very large grant. It's maybe a regular size grant for the first year, but it goes on for 4 years. And that will give us quite a bit of money to support teachers in doing some of the things that we would like to see happen here at the school. First of all, there's lots of information about PCBL, and we've been talking about it on and off throughout the year. This is our planning year, and we thought we were really well planned and we were ready to jump in until we realized that there was a much larger opportunity at this time, and we decided to take it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But the concept that I want to talk to you about tonight before you come is disruptive thinking. And you may have heard this. It's been a buzzword for about 20 years. In fact, it's been such a buzzword and it's been used by so many people in so many settings that it's lost some of its original definition and some of the original purpose that went with this little phrase of disruptive thinking. The idea originally was presented by a man, Clay Christensen, who worked at Harvard and was part of that big think tank there. And what they were really looking for was, how do you go into an industry where everything is not accessible to every person and change it, disrupt it, so that was once what was once only available to some people is now available to anyone who wants it. And he referred to his work as disruptive innovation. I would like to kind of talk a little bit about what innovation is and about what disruptive thinking is, kind of as separate items, because that's how we're going to refer to them. Innovation is any time you take an existing product or experience and you improve on it. So let's say you hate everything about hotels, like you don't like that whole process, but you can go to an Airbnb. Initially, they were less expensive. That made them a little more available to people. They're not anymore. But you do have some privacy, and you can go to some unique places, and you can stay in a tree house or, places that you might not access in terms of your regular home. Some people don't like the extra fees. There's lots of things about it, but it was an innovation. The idea was, how can we make a hotel stay better? And what can we do with this extra house we have, or this extra room in this house we have, or this extra apartment we have in our community, where we can maybe get a little bit of income coming in that it's such a nice place, but grandma only stays there twice a year, or whatever it is. So there was some innovative thinking. I remember going to the grocery store one time and looking in the toothpaste aisle, and there were 20 different types of toothbrushes for sale, just toothbrushes alone, 20 different types. And that isn't taking into account the different colors. That's just like that's Colgate and Crest and I don't know, all the different brands, but then also there's the kinds with this thing and that thing and the other thing. Those are all innovations on the toothbrush. There's no real disruption there. It's the same process. It's a small handheld brush. You apply some sort of toothpaste that you've chosen. You go over all your teeth, inside, outside, backwards and forward, and it keeps your teeth healthy and your breath fresh and your dentist happy, and it's great. But those are innovations. You might not be able to get your favorite toothbrush anymore. Maybe they stopped making it. It got timed out, or not enough people bought it, or something changed. I remember having a student who one year in our invention convention was making what he called travel toothbrushes. And he drilled a little hole in the center of the head and he squirted just a little bead of toothpaste in there. And then he wrapped it all up in plastic and tied it off with a rubber band. And the idea was when you went on your trip, you could just unwrap that. The toothpaste would already be there. You squeezed on the head on the bristle sides, and up popped the toothpaste, and there you had it. It's not really disruptive, but it certainly was innovative. And he was trying to sell those to other people and maybe find someone, a dentist or somebody who would host them and maybe patent them. And he had his big plans, all as a 6th grader. So innovation is when we take something that we already have and we do a better job with it. And as teachers, that has been our battle cry. How can we do it better? How can we do it more efficiently? How can we do it more effectively? How can we reach a greater number of students? How can we remediate for the students who aren't getting it? How can we do a better job with what we've got and what we're doing? And we've become very innovative. And there have been lots of people who participated in that. There used to be magazines that you could get. Now there's blog posts and there's subscriptions you can subscribe to, where a teacher will give you their best ideas. You can go to Teachers Pay Teachers and get ideas. Conferences and workshops have widely been dismissed because we can get things so quickly online and save the time and the travel. That when I started my career, if you were going to go to a math workshop, you had to buy a ticket to San Francisco, and it was going to be the 5th of June, and you better plan ahead, and who's going with you, and will the district approve? And then you head off on your adventure where you spend a day or two learning from someone who knows what they're doing, and then you try to remember it all so you can come back into your classroom and implement that to the best of your ability. Now it's a very, very different experience. It's a very different experience. In some ways, that part of our industry has become, it's at your fingertips. You don't have to wait until June to get those ideas. You don't have to pay that kind of money to have access to other teachers' thoughts and opinions and ideas, which is really, really wonderful. And also a tiny bit sad, because those trips were fun and it was adventurous to go off with some of your colleagues and see Arizona or whatever. I remember going to a particularly enjoyable astrophysics conference in New Mexico, and we got to see the giant telescopes and go there and do things. And there's just no way that an online reproduction of that would have been the same. So innovation is when we have a good thing going and we make it better. We'd have a good thing going and we make it better. Disruption is when we look at the people we're serving and we see who are the people at the bottom, who are the people that are barely making it, and how can we change the status quo so that the people here have the same access to whatever it is as the people up here. So 2 really common examples of disruptive thinking are, number 1, Uber. We had a taxi system. We still do. The taxi system works, but it's expensive and it's not available everywhere. So Uber came in thinking, well, we can come in at this lower part, at least in terms of convenience. It's not any less expensive than a taxi, not if any. In fact, in Washington, D.C., Uber is actually more expensive, but you can put more people in the car, so it's less expensive if you have a large crowd that you're traveling with. But Uber didn't change things for the people who are the bus pass users or the Metro users or the Amtrak users. They were still paying a smaller amount of money and accessing public transportation. It did make things nicer for the people who ordinarily call taxis, because now they had a broader expanse that they could travel to. They could call and make a very specific arrangements for the pickup. They didn't have to go out on the street and wait or call the concierge and ask them if they'd hail a taxi, all which comes with fees. And so it was more convenient for sure, but it wasn't really lifting the people. People didn't suddenly say, well, I don't need a bus pass anymore, I can take an Uber. It wasn't that inexpensive. It was rivaling the cost of a taxi. So that is an innovation. It makes things better for the people that are already using a system like that. It's a better system that's like that. On the other side of that is it created a different set of jobs. Now people could drive for Uber or Lyft or whoever they wanted to drive for without the override of the cab industry being part of that. And that made a difference for second jobs. People could get a second job driving in their own car on their own when they were available. So it was a disruptor in that way. That was a change for those people and brought them an opportunity to earn that kind of money. But this is an area that gets confusing because some people will still refer to Uber as a disruptive thought, but you can see that it's really more of an innovation, right? Let's talk about iPhones, another very common tool that is available to people. When cell phones first came out, they were wildly expensive. They were huge and heavy. Some of you are old enough to remember that. And they were expensive. And you paid by the phone call. And if you had a phone that had the capacity to text, you paid by the letter. You paid by the letter. And so that's where all that really shortened text language came from. If I only have to type a U, the letter U for the word you, I've saved the expense of those other two extra letters. And lots of codes erupted, and lots of little tiny abbreviations erupted to help people know and stay in communication with each other, while at the same time keeping their bills as low as possible while they were texting. But Apple went a little further. Phones were being innovative. Apple was already really big in the computer industry and was kind of doing a little something extra on the phone and wanted to get in on the phone market. And so we had those original devices. But when they came out with the first iPhone, it was different. It had a different name. It was called a smartphone. And the reason it was smart is because it had services that a regular phone could not offer. If you look at Apple and iPhone as a disruptor, you can see that it truly is, because people who ordinarily might not have the capacity to buy a computer at $2,000 to $3,000 to $5,000, not a Chromebook, but really a computer, can buy a phone and can rent a phone for $64 a month and pay it off over 3 or 4 years' time and walk around with a computer in their pocket. Not only is this disruptive in terms of now people with perhaps a little less income have access to a full-on computer. Younger people have access to a computer all the time. And that was disruptive. Families didn't know what to do with that. Kids went kind of crazy. People are kind of still trying to figure out, what do we do and how do we keep kids safe when they're walking around with a computer in their pocket that we are paying $64 a month for, or whatever your phone bill is. It changed things. It disrupted things. And then innovations grew off of that disruption. Innovations that allow people to make handheld movies, not just take family photos, but to literally make movies that they turn in, slide presentations, to do their work in their hands. You'll still see commuters and people carrying laptops on public transportation, flights and stuff, but you also see people writing their dissertation notes on their phone that they're going to come back later and download. You've seen Jennifer walk around with what looks like a paper notebook and a pen that she can download to her computer at another time. She could do that right there. Click that computer QR code and bring that written note to her files. It's disruptive and innovative. And the innovations continue. And we wonder every fall, I don't know if you do, I wonder every fall, what's going to show up? What's Apple going to bring this time? What's going to happen this time? What are we going to be able to do? I happen to have a former student. He must be 27, 28 years old. And he's a huge Apple fan. I'll tell you more about him sometime if you want to know about him. But he figured out about, I want to say 5 years ago, how to take two phones and put the phones like this and project and play a movie from this one that was picked up on this one. And guess what he created? A hologram right on his phone. He couldn't deal with complicated things, but he could make a top spin. He could make a ball bounce, and it literally looked like it came up out of the computer. Well, this year, just before Christmas time, he sent out an announcement about an app that he developed. And for, I think it was, I don't know, $2, $2.95, something like that, you could order a gift card for your friend for Christmas. Well, why would you want to do that? You can go buy a gift card for free and put it in an envelope for 50 cents and send it to your friend. Why would you pay $2 or $3? Well, he mails you a little box, and on the side of the little box, there's a QR code. Your friend unwraps the little box, holds it up to the camera on their phone. The box is transferred. Now it's not literally transferred, it's still in my hand, but the QR code is read. I see the box tumbling down on my screen. And when it gets to the bottom, it bursts open and it has the gift card listed that I've sent and the quantity that it's for, and it automatically transfers that to your wallet. So he's created an experience with that. That's innovative. It's not disruptive. It doesn't make anything accessible to somebody who wasn't already had access. We already had an easier access to gift cards, but it makes an interactive, fun. It adds to the gift of the gift card, which is, of course, the complaint about the gift card anyway, even though I personally think they're wonderful. Not everyone does. They think it's impersonal. It's a way to make an impersonal gift card feel very personal. So back to education, innovation, and who are we here together as we do all this. I just want to keep this really short. So I'm only going to talk to you for a few more minutes. I just wanted to give you the information tomorrow. Who are our clients who have the least access to what we offer every day? It might be our students that have behavior issues or academic challenges or motivational problems, or they're highly gifted and things are boring and repetitive and predictable for them and they just can't get enthused about what's going on. That's the group we've been looking at for the last couple of years. With conscious discipline, with reading horizons, with Amira, with lots of the things that we've done and experimented with that have been all a little bit tiny, annoying and maybe frustrating from time to time. And as recently as a few months ago, we had people still asking for punishments and consequences. And even though we know that if we ever hope to end children's bullying, then the adults must let go of the belief that guilt, punishment, and revenge are effective strategies for helping children learn life skills. That's from Conscious Discipline. The Feeling Buddies part of it. It's one I really like. So you're familiar with this. And one of the things we're going to do on Friday is we're going to take some passages from this book, which I really enjoy. I don't know if that's looking at you and you're seeing it. I think you're seeing it correctly, and it's not reversed, but just in case it is, it's called Disruptive Thinking. If you want a copy of this book, Jennifer will buy one for you. And we're buying it out of the grant money. So, feel free to ask for it if it's something you want. But we'll be looking at some of the passages that are in this book, and we'll be looking at what our journey has been and how it aligns with the kind of information that you'll be able to see and read and recognize. You will recognize yourself in here. And some of the things that you've been doing that have seemed hard may become a little more clear or a little more purposeful when you see them through someone else's point of view. We'll spend our time on Friday working through this and becoming a little more familiar with it and recognizing the things we've already done in anticipation for our summer work. Our summer work days are going to be in June, the first week in June, and they'll be regular, 8 to 4 days or something like that. I don't know the schedule exactly, but we'll figure that out and let you know. You'll be paid if you want to come to those meetings. And one of the purposes will be to create our profile of a scholar. What do we expect a Promontory student to be able to know by the time they've graduated? What skills should they have? And how do we think we're going to get there? When we talk to you about choices and you've been like, but I don't know what that means, and how do I still know how to grade them? These are all topics we want to attempt to elaborate a little bit on, dig in a little deeper and figure out what that might be like. Then you will, if you attend those meetings, you'll also be paid for some time during the summer when you work independently and look at your own curriculum and think, where can I disrupt what I've been doing? How can I make what I do more accessible to a child who might be missed if I don't do this? If I don't make some disruptive changes, if I don't really look at the kid who is at the entry level and help to get them up so they have the same access to the same experiences and understanding, not worksheets and not procedures, but the same knowledge that's available to all, or the quality of the knowledge that's available to all. When I went to school, there was an understanding that there was a certain body of information that you had to know for both science and history, for math, for music, for art. There was still kind of a little bit of a Renaissance thing going on where we were supposed to be real well-rounded. That was super important. Not important enough to pay for a teacher to teach us about art, but important enough for it to at least show up every once in a while. But I mean, that was so long ago. That was 50 years ago. We don't have an end to what we know now. There's no way to boil that down and put it in a set of textbooks, or put it in a set of 7 years of learning and think, well, by the time you're done with 8th grade, you'll know everything you really need to know. The most important thing we teach students in school these days, of course, is reading and math, but also how to learn. We cannot predict what the world is going to be like 20 years from now. We can guess, maybe we can predict, but we can't know. And based on the speed of light that we seem to be traveling on right now, we may be anticipating 20 years from now, and it actually ends up being 10 years from now. We want to make sure students know really how to be lifelong learners. That's why the lifelong learner stuff is up in the faculty room this week, or the workroom this week, to remind us how important that is, and how we help children to really have that ability to understand that they don't know yet, but they can know if they want to know, and that there's lots of ways for people to learn, and people learn in many, many different ways. If you're worried about the first week in June, don't worry about that. We'll do some night classes in April and May, and by night classes, I mean 4 to 6, not like, 10 o'clock or something, so that you can get the same number of hours and the same preparation ready. Let's just say your family's already booked tickets to go to Europe. You'll be able to take your classes in the end of April and the beginning of May to make sure that you are also ready to do that summer work. When you come back to school in the fall, it'll be a little different. Back to school night, I think, is the 17th of August. Yep. 17th of August, sometime during the summer, you should come in and set up and be ready for that. You're expected to be ready for that. But the only PD days we have are the Monday and Tuesday of the next week. And those will be the mandatory PD days, and the students will come back on Wednesday. This will give you your planning time, your prep time, your thinking time in the back of your mind while you're hiking, in the back of your mind while you're at the beach. As you head off in some long car ride, you might decide to take this book with you and look at some things and think about, what can I do? What do I want to change? As always, it's not my idea that you're going to toss everything out the window and start over from scratch. That would be crazy. That would be like saying, instead of using cars, we're now going to use mushrooms to travel around the town. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to try to do that. We already have a really, really good system in place, and we have a lot of really wonderful things in place. We have some places where we can continue innovation, and there's a few places where we can make disruptions. And that's going to be the challenge for us for our implementation year, which starts next fall. But for us, it'll start in the summer, because we're going to jump on that in advance, give you background and time and support to work your way through that. I thought it'd be fun to have I don't know if it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to have a gathering every few weeks on campus, just for people who are in town and want to come in and like shoot the breeze, kind of bounce ideas off each other. What are you thinking? Where does this look like it's headed for you? I'm stuck. Can anybody help me with this? Things like that. It might be virtual. It might be in person. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that and decide what we want to do, because it really truly is up to us. I want you to know that this program and this experience is supported by Jennifer and by the board, and that though it will look different for each of us, this momentum is important. If this seems unusual, please try to come with an open mind and consider the things that you're going to hear on Friday. We wanted to do this early enough in the year that if this is not the direction you want to go, that you still have time to look for a job in another school or another district, because this is the direction we are going here. We know it's best practice for children. We know that it's a great practice for teachers. We know that we want our students to have the kinds of things that will be available through this. And it's beautifully already written into our charter. We don't really have to change much of anything in our charter. There was foresight and forethought in the preparation of the charter, and the things that have attracted so many of us to the school are still highly valued, and in fact should actually be coming better, because rather than jumping into the what's wrong with America and what's wrong with the way we've done this, we want to look at what's right and how do we make it better, what's working and how do we make it accessible for everyone, what lifts souls, what helps children. So I invite you to come and wander and see what you think. I look forward to seeing you on Friday. Friday is actually mandatory, so that part's not optional. Okay. If you can't make it or don't make it that day, choose not to come, that I need to have a little disclaimer that says that will be personal time off and will be deducted. But the afternoon is for you. So I'll see you then. Thank you.